Hey guys, this is Theo Joe Tech, and today I'm going to be discussing the Amazon Echo, the latest talking cylinder from the online merchant. Now I've got a lot to say, so let's take a look. Now the Amazon Echo is still in limited release. If you want to get one, you have to sign up on Amazon's website and wait a few months before you actually get it. Now, I ordered mine back in January, got it in April, and have been using it the past few weeks. Now, the Echo comes with the cylinder itself, a power cord, a remote, and a holder for the remote that can be mounted to pretty much any surface. First, let's talk about the obvious, what the cylinder itself looks like. Now, the Echo has a matte black plastic finish with holes at the bottom on the side for the speaker, and also holes at the top for the microphones. At the top of the housing is actually 7 different microphones, so it can actually hear in any direction at quite a distance. Now when you use the wake word, the top ring of lights lights up in a cool blue color. One cool detail is that because of the 7 microphones, the Echo actually knows which direction you're talking from. So if you talk at it, it actually points at you with a different, slightly lighter blue colored light, so you can actually walk around and it will follow you, pointing with the different colored light. So that's just a nice little detail. Now at the top of the device you have 2 different buttons. One's a general use activation button, which can be used to wake the device to give a command without having to say the wake word, but it also silences alarms and timers. The other button mutes the microphone so that it ignores all commands and won't respond to anything, and you know it's activated because a red ring will appear in the light ring. Now the top of the cylinder can actually be rotated to control the volume, and as you turn it, there's a white ring that goes around the edge to show what percentage volume it's at. I thought this was a nice addition, and you can also control the volume using just voice commands. Now the cylinder has a pretty good dense weight to it. It feels really sturdy, and it has a rubber bottom, so if you bump it lightly with your hand or anything like that, it's not going to move. Also at the bottom is of course where you plug in the power, but there's also a small LED light to show that the device is powered and also connected to Wi-Fi. As for the speaker, it's actually pretty good. It sounds really clear and can fill the whole room. However, I found the bass response, while okay, definitely isn't great. I'd like to see some improvement for that. Now let's go over the remote. It's pretty simple. It's got the forward and back, volume up and down, play and pause button, and a microphone button. Now the front has what looks like an infrared plate, but I found that it can be used when it's not in direct line of sight, even in another room, so I assume it has some other type of wireless technology like Bluetooth. Now the remote actually has a microphone built in, which is really useful if you're in another room. You can just press the microphone button, talk into the remote, and it will send the commands to Echo wirelessly. Now the magnetic holder for the remote works really well. It has a reusable sticky backing, so you can take it off and put it on another surface after you clean it. This is really similar to how my Nexus 5 wireless charger is, where it's pretty much just a type of rubber that is basically really sticky. It's not some sort of adhesive. I found that the magnets actually attract the batteries as opposed to the remote itself. When I first took it out of the box and tried to put the remote in the holder, it wouldn't stick and I didn't know why, but after I realized it was the batteries in it, it held on really strongly. And the attraction is very strong. Not strong enough where it's actually hard to take off, but there's definitely no danger of it falling off even if it's on a vertical surface. Now let's go over how it works and how it performs. You can choose the wake word of either Amazon or Alexa, which comes from the name of the Library of Alexandria. It's actually surprisingly good at understanding what you're saying, even for unusual words such as tempestuous. It can also understand you pretty well even if there's music or something going on in the background. However, I did find that it sometimes fails when you try to say words that aren't actually in the dictionary, which can be troublesome if you're trying to pronounce the name of a band that's really unusual. One slight negative I found is that it can really only fetch very basic data. For example, if I were to ask it, who is the 44th president, it will correctly respond Barack Obama. If I were to ask when was Barack Obama born, it would correctly give me the answer. However, if I were to ask when was the 44th president born, it doesn't know. It seems like the AI is really limited and it can't seem to logically link the 2 requests. This is something that other services like Google can do, so I'd really like to see some improvement in the AI in that regard. Now it is still in beta, so I'm sure we will be seeing improvements like this in the future. Now despite the limited AI, there are some awesome basic tools that it can do really well. For example, you can create a to-do list or add things to your shopping cart, and you can actually automatically order with your voice certain prime items that you've ordered before. Some other basic features include an alarm and timer, both of which can be activated through voice, and you can also do cool things like asking for the traffic on your normal commute route. All of these features can be managed through the Amazon Echo app or through the Amazon web interface on your computer. The app also lets you manage third-party services, change settings, and see a history of the commands you've given Echo. Now, the app and website also have some documentation to help using Echo, such as a Things to Try menu. You can also do voice training sessions, which allows Echo to better interpret how you speak, no matter what accent you have. As I mentioned, there are right now a few third-party services you can use to integrate with Echo. These include iHeartRadio, Pandora, TuneIn, and Amazon Prime Music. You can also use it with smart home devices such as Philips Hue or Wemo devices. I actually use it with Philips Hue, and while the features are limited right now, I find it very useful. For example, I can't tell Echo to change the color of my lights, but I can tell it to turn my lights on and off and change the dimness at any given percentage. Another one of the main features is the flash news briefing and headlines feature to read you your news. Now, I have really mixed feelings about this because while it's really useful to be able to get the news, there are also some glaring limitations that I'm really surprised are in the product at all. Now, let me explain. You can tell Echo to play any of the news shows it supports and it'll do it no problem. You can do NPR, BBC News, that kind of thing, and it'll start playing that show, the latest one. However, for the news headlines and flash briefings, there's one thing I found extremely annoying. Now, for the flash briefing, you go into the app and select which topics and subjects you want to hear about. And when you ask it to play your flash briefing, it'll read out these topics no problem. However, if you want to listen to a specific subject, it can't do it. For example, I have my tech news and science news selected for my flash briefing. If I tell it to give me my flash briefing, it'll do it no problem, starting with the tech news and then going to science news. However, if I were to suddenly want business headlines and I were to ask it to give me business headlines, it just starts reading my flash briefing, starting with tech, which doesn't make any sense. So you cannot specify the subject of which headlines you want. You can only listen to the entire flash briefing. While you can skip individual stories, if you're listening to tech news in your flash briefing and you want to skip all the tech news and go straight to science, you can't do that either. I thought this was an extremely big oversight. I'm sure we'll see it improved in the future, but I couldn't believe they would put it in like this, where you would request one thing and it would just totally ignore it and just play your whole massive flash briefing all at once without really being able to skip through it at all. Now, while you might think I'm nitpicking, I really do think that Amazon Echo works really well overall given the stage of production it's in its limited release. Basically, all the shortcomings it has right now can be fixed with software updates in the future. Right now, it has some really cool basic features, but nothing really groundbreaking that we've seen. However, I can see it becoming a really awesome device once we see more integration with more third-party services. For example, imagine being able to interact with your TiVo or DVR to record the next episode of your favorite show automatically. Another cool feature could be to get breaking news updates to hear really important stories as soon as they're broadcast on certain services like BBC. I'd also like to be able to set reminders where it would tell you to do stuff. Right now, it's pretty much an only input device. I'd like to see a lot of features where it outputs information so you can stay up to date on certain things. In conclusion, the Amazon Echo is good. I really hope Amazon makes it great with software updates in the future. Right now it costs $200, but if you have Prime already, it costs only $99. It's not overly expensive, but it's definitely not a cheap device either, so people are gonna have to definitely figure out whether it's worth the cost. If you'd like to hear more information about it, I'll put the link right in the description to the Amazon page for Echo so you can decide whether it's something you want to get or not. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the Echo or this review itself if you have any advice. I'd really like to hear from you guys. You can like the video if you found it helpful, and also don't forget to subscribe because I try to make new videos multiple times a week on this channel. You can check out some previous week's videos on the right-hand side. So thanks for watching Theo Joe Tech. I will see you next time. Have a good one.